Welcome to our veto session edition of This Week in Missouri Politics. We are joined by a senator who's usually at the center of every news story. Obviously this week too, Senator Mary Elizabeth Coleman from Jeffco. Welcome back to This Week in Missouri Politics.
Thanks for having me, Scott.
So we all thought, big veto session week, that'll be all the talk. No, the Amendment 3 case that you filed actually wound its way through the courts. You won a big victory in Cole County Circuit Court last week.
That's right.
However, the Supreme Court ruled this week. What was the actual, I understand it's all about abortion and things, but what was the case about?
Yeah, the case wasn't actually about abortion. What the case was about notice to voters. So we have certain laws and requirements that when you are bringing forward something to the voter and you ask them to vote on it, that they are told what it's going to be about. You know, this language is all written in legalese. It goes on and on. There's been lots of fight about what is the summary language and what shouldn't it be. And the truth is I think that the Missouri Supreme Court erred in their decision, and we haven't seen the logic yet of how they got to their decision. We've only seen that the decision was made to put it on the ballot. But I would guess that they're going to strike some statutes that have long been in the books and long been complied with to make sure Missouri voters know what they're voting on. And, you know, their attorney said the quiet part out loud in Cole County, which is a large part of why we won there, that they didn't tell people what was going to be overturned because they knew if people knew, they probably weren't going to sign it. And so
do you really think, though, I mean, in Southeast Missouri, the IP process just totally cuts us out. People talk about disenfranchisement.
That's right. They don't care at all about those rural voices.
Nobody wants to go to a guy in Advanced Missouri and try to get him to give the government his address again. But I do think when people sign petitions, they have some idea. They don't know the details. They're not going to read the details. They're at the Soulard Farmers Market rolling through, or they're on the plaza in Kansas City signing these things. They do have some sense they're about abortion. Do you think the people that signed this did know they were generally going to make abortion more easy to have, right?
Yeah, but the problem is that most people maybe don't agree with me that all life is sacred and we should be protecting it and that the laws of the state are the appropriate place they should be. People maybe they want to see a return to Roe, but what that means in their head isn't at all what this language does. It's very extreme and it cuts across a ton of different topics, including access to IVF and surrogacy, which Missouri has some of the most progressive liberal laws on, believe it or not, to access for those things. It's not about, you know, it's going to affect gender affirming care, or what you and I would call the mutilation of children. We finally outlawed in the state. That all covers under the reproductive health. And so what people are voting on is not, do you like the current law? It's, do you think this idea is the right idea? And this idea is extreme. It goes far beyond Roe. And I don't think that if they had complied, Missourians would have voted for it. And I think Missourians are smart enough to be told the truth.
I would say that nobody signing something is going to read through what statutes will overturn. But whether they vote for it, totally different. I mean, you're signing something, I agree. No one reads all that. No one has time. That's just not real. No one reads the
Sure.
conservative ones either. But looking forward, the pro-life movement in this state has had some amazing successes, a lot of them that you've authored. But it just feels like the leadership in the pro-life community of Missouri, really there's nothing they hate more than other pro-life people. I mean, you're probably the most accomplished pro-life legislator in office in the state of Missouri right now. I don't think anybody's got the scorecard you have of wins on the pro-life issue. And half the time they give you grief. Is a movement this kind of just dysfunctional? Yeah. Can it go to the ballot and win?
Well, I think we have an uphill battle for sure. The pro-life community is almost as divided as the pro-choice community. You know, they came together very late in the game to put a ballot initiative forward because they were fighting amongst themselves as well. And, you know, we're going to be outspent. We have seen millions and millions of dollars come in from out-of-state interests to try to put forward a lie about what this amendment is about and what they're.
I've only found Republicans dislike out-of-state money when it's something they don't like. They don't mind out-of-state money.
Well, listen, that's a fair critique, except what you're seeing happen is millions and millions of dollars come in, flow into the state to try to deceive voters, and openly, they just don't comply with them. If you heard Chuck Hatfield's arguments in front of the Supreme Court, his argument was those rules don't apply to us because we have momentum, we have money, and people want to see this on the ballot. And the Supreme Court, unfortunately, sided with him. We are divided as a pro-life community, that's true, but it's time now to put those divisions behind us, to tell people the truth about what this amendment does, and to do our best to defeat it.
There is a great pro-life case to be made. Now, I think a reasonable person say, well, maybe this law is a little further pro-life than the state is. And maybe this IB is a little further pro-choice in the state is there's a great case to be made. I mean, but imagine this fall, is it possible to have you, Senator O'Loughlin, Senator Carter, folks like that out in front, actually making that case with some funding to get your message out? To me, if you do that, I think there's a fighting chance to win this. But do you think the movement can organize and come together and have you telling this story?
Sure. I don't know. What I will tell you is I have been committed to trying to stop this in every single way possible since it was brought forward. And I will continue to do so. Senator O'Loughlin and Senator Carter are certainly strong leaders of the pro-life movement.
Isn't it time to leave the courthouse, leave all the IP reform, all the legal maneuvers now, go talk to people and make your case, right? Like this morning.
For sure. And that's what we're doing. But when you think that there's going to be parity when you're fighting against the liberal media who are telling lies about what actually is in the amendment, when you're fighting against a liberal Democratic court overturning protections for voters, I just would like to say it's really important that everybody goes out and tells their friends, tells their neighbors, read the actual language that would be put into the Constitution.
But I've watched you. The media hated all of your legislation that was pro-life.
Yeah.
The courts probably started off skeptical about it. And a lot of the legislation you pass is held. So, I mean, it's doable. It just takes a united front, which has been hard to find on the pro-life side lately.
Sure, fair enough. But I will say that we are working to defeat this. We're working to get the message out. I think people are seeing vote no on 3 signs going out across the state. But, we also aren't going to have the money because the money doesn't back the pro-life movement. We never have. This is
2 years from now, you sit in that chair telling me about an initiative petition to overturn this initiative petition?
I mean, I think that Probably. This is not the last fight. Eric Schmidt said, no matter what happens, people are going to get an opportunity to vote on this again, and that's going to be the truth. And so I think we'll do everything we can to fight it. And then if we lose in November, it's a fool's errand to think that I won't do everything from the Senate to put something else on the ballot to protect the unborn.
Let's talk about something you rose in the Senate this week. It came out that one of the departments was doing DEI conferences.
Yeah.
At the Department of Insurance. It was
not just doing DEI conferences. I mean, I think not just being attending, which is bad enough, but winning awards, publicizing that they're so proud of these things. And, we have Republican supermajorities in this state for a reason. And it's because of issues like DEI. We don't think that people should be divided based on immutable characteristics, your skin color, your sex, your nationality. These are inherent things about who you are. And if you are giving people jobs because of one of those reasons, well, I don't think most Missourians support that. We think that it should be merit-based. And in fact, we've passed laws to get the government out of this DEI garbage.
Mizzou got out of it on their own.
Mizzou saw the way things were going and decided we're not going to do it. And Mizzou has not been traditionally super conservative. And even they said, you know what, we're using taxpayer dollars. We are a state institution. It is important that we're in line with the elected representatives of the taxpayer. And at the Department of Insurance, they're helmed by a woman who has decided to really flout that and to go in the face of what our governor has said, what the lieutenant governor has said, what the General Assembly has said. And at some point, that has to stop. And so, yes, I stood up and I said, we're not going to be confirming anyone to the department. We're not going to be confirming any appointees. We're going to be taking a very hard look with the power of the purse to not send money to that department while these things are happening. So
after you stood up, 4 of your colleagues stood up right after and pretty much reiterated what you said.
Yeah, I think that Senator Trunt and, Senator Crawford added a little bit of a different frustration with that particular department. Those bureaucrats have just run rampant over the General Assembly. They think the rules don't apply to them. There was a bill that they weren't super pumped about doing. They didn't like what the General Assembly and the governor said this direction of the state laws are going to be. And
it's kind of a bureaucratic arrogance is what it comes off as.
Yeah, and at some point, you can't have people who are elected to represent you. People can fire me if they don't like the job that I'm doing, and they should, right? But what will happen is if you have people that aren't responsive to the taxpayer and they could just do whatever the heck they want and they know they can get away with it, they're going to. And so this isn't just about pushing back against DEI, although that's super important. This is about really bureaucratic overreach. And so it's time for a new day.
As it wraps up Governor Parson's last veto session, last time everybody will be in town while he's governor, I think back to the bill he signed, your bill, and they called the Heartbeat Bill. I remember that image vividly in his office signing that piece of legislation. Mike Parson has a hell of a lot of wins up on the scoreboard as he leaves town.
The biggest tax cut in the history of the state, massive infrastructure investments, the most pro-life governor in the history of the state. I mean, he has done a tremendous amount, and his real legacy isn't even necessarily the statutes that he has signed into law or his leadership there, but what you see is actually the people that he has put into positions after him. So you saw his pick for lieutenant governor win the nomination for governor. Governor Kehoe is going to be a tremendous success and be able to continue to move Missouri forward in the right direction. You saw Andrew Bailey winning a very contentious primary, and really quite handily. You saw his appointee, even Vivek Malik. Every single one of his appointments. Eric Schmidt. I mean, his track record is not just at the helm, but who he has entrusted. The people have said, yeah, I think you had good judgment. I trust them too.
It will be a ripple effect through Missouri history.
Yeah. No other governor has appointed anywhere near the level of people, and then to have won those appointments. I mean, that to me is the thing that is so interesting, is it's not just that he made these great appointments, but that the people agreed with him and they're sending back the people he hired.
Thank you so much for joining us on a busy week here in Jeff City for This Week in Missouri Politics.
Thanks so much.
We'll be right back. Representative Bill Hardwick and Representative Keri Ingle will argue about Senator Coleman's work after this.
For more than a century, the St. Louis Carpenters Union has shaped our communities. Through trusted alliances, we deliver skilled professional craftspeople, while our business partners provide the kind of quality jobs that keep our economy humming. It's a blueprint that has worked since 1882. Turning Missouri into a right-to-work state stalls progress, wipes out jobs, and kills momentum. Right to work is wrong for everyone. Let's keep Missouri moving forward. Visit carpdc.org to learn more.
You know, Missouri farmers have been doing what's best for their land for generations. After all, no one knows what it takes to feed and fuel a growing global population better than they do. So why are trial lawyers threatening Missouri farmers' best defense against weeds? Our farmers don't need to be controlled. They need to be supported. Keep glyphosate in our state. Show your support at TakeControlMissouri.com. Paid for by Modern Ag Alliance in support of Missouri farmers.
Data captured by our state-of-the-art monitors helps us pinpoint the timing and location of severe weather more accurately and respond to trouble more quickly. Ameren, Missouri's investment in smart technologies like this is one way we're improving reliability and restoring power faster than ever. Responding to trouble before trouble hits. That's energy at work. Ameren, Missouri.
Welcome back. This week of Missouri Politics Veto Session Edition, Opinion Maker Panel Time. Representative Bill Hardwick from Pulaski County. Welcome back, sir.
Hey, Scott. Thanks for having me.
Doyle Justus from the Great Northeast, right?
That's right.
Avenue of the Saints. Love it. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Ashley Aune from the Northland. Welcome back.
Good to have me here.
Ed Lee, Summit's own Keri Ingle. Keri Ingle, what a whiplash of a week. Debates, a DEI investigation. But let's start with the biggest news that affects Missourians. Amendment 3, the amendment that would allow abortion to become legal again in the state of Missouri. It has taken some turns, some real odd twists, but the Supreme Court finally put an end to it and said, okay, this is on the ballot, put it on there, tell the counties to put it on. Had to be a happy day for you.
Oh, absolutely. I think it's a happy day for democracy. I think it's a happy day for every Missourian who deserves to have their voice heard at the ballot box in November.
I do think the court's ruling essentially said, and I believe this to be the case. I've always been generally a pro-life person, but I think the 380-some thousand Missourians that signed this, I think they knew they were signing something with abortion. Now, some people, to Southeast Missouri, we never get asked to sign these things because we don't tell the government where we live. But if you're leaving, Hy-Vee or something, I get there's a few that sign it, but I believe most folks knew they were signing something with abortion, right?
Right. Absolutely. They knew exactly what they were doing. The federal government kicked this back to the states, and the states are telling them one by one exactly what they want. Missouri is next.
So are you saying Roe versus Wade overturned was a good thing then?
No, I just think that it happened, and the states understood the assignment, and we are telling the federal government how they should be approaching this issue.
Bill Hardwick, when Roe versus Wade was overturned, lots of Republicans were thrilled. Lots of pro-life folks were thrilled.
Right.
I actually think it's the likely scenario that come January of this year, abortion will be more readily available than before Roe versus Wade was overturned in Missouri.
I'm hesitant to say an outcome before the people get a chance to speak, and that's what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's right, that this is an issue that should go to the states, that the people should decide what the law is in their states, how they want to protect life. And I'm hopeful that in Missouri that we're going to say that life is important, that human life is valuable, and people are going to vote to keep us a pro-life state.
Representative Justice, it is interesting to me. I do feel like if people say this is a state's issue, if the state speaks, it might speak in a way they weren't anticipating. Is it a case where the dog caught the car with Roe versus Wade? Now that it's overturned, what do you do with this newfound ability to set for each state to set its own abortion laws? And I'm not sure it didn't set back the cause here in Missouri.
So again, I agree with Representative Hardwick, and I think we need to let the voters speak. Don't want to draw any conclusions before the election's over. But I hope the voters are educated on what this amendment really contains. And yes, and if it passes, it could be worse.
Well, Bill, let me ask you. I've watched the pro-life movement, obviously incredibly successful in this state. I mean, scoreboard win after scoreboard win in the legislature. But it has increasingly become a movement that it doesn't really go talk to any pro-choice people to bring them into the tent. It just kind of screams at other pro-choice people, or pro-life people, they're not pro-life enough. Is this movement in a place where it can go defeat this amendment? Because I don't see a lot of people saying, I want to sit by those screaming, miserable people.
It's definitely a test. But just like Roe versus Wade didn't put the issue to rest, the Missouri Supreme Court's ruling yesterday didn't put the issue to rest. Mm-hmm. The people have a say, and we have a part in persuading people that our cause is just, that protecting life is worth it, that there's a right to life, and that human life should be protected. And that's on us to persuade people, through philosophy, through example, by how we act. There's a lot of persuasion by how you conduct yourself.
The law's a little further out pro-life than where the public is. This law may be more pro-choice. Do you think pro-life folks can come together?
I definitely think the people in Lincoln County are going to come together and support life. We have a great pro-life chapter there that gets out and meets regularly, and I think in Lincoln County you'll see the voters come out and support life.
Keri Ingle, the pro-life people, the leaders of this movement, they hate the other pro-life people. Mm-hmm. I do think it is
very sad. At
the top, it is divided. Now, I think probably in local counties, just like there's a robust group in Kansas City that supports abortion rights, I have no doubt there's a robust group in Pulaski and Lincoln counties that will oppose this. But boy, with that top-down leadership is pretty much focused on why you shouldn't like other pro-life people. Your camp does not have those internal issues right now. You seem very united, very well funded also to go to the voters in November.
Yeah, we are in array for sure. As long as Republicans continue to infight and tell the women of this state and across the country what to do with their bodies, they're going to continue to lose seats, and they're going to continue to lose this ballot issue over and over and over. And it's sad that they can't come together, but that's democracy, I guess.
It is interesting, though. You do see movements, and I think maybe part of it is the success of the pro-life. Whether anybody agrees with it or not, there has been pro-life success after the legislature passing. I think maybe sometimes that success, it makes it hard to get along with your folks. Because, let's be honest, Missouri Right to Life will tell you most of the Missouri Senate who voted for all these pro-life victories are pro-choice.
Well, and I think that it also is telling when you look around the legislatures that have passed these extreme abortion laws, we're looking at supermajority Republican states, right? And if you look at Missouri specifically, we know that the infighting is the biggest challenge on the right side of the aisle at this point. They cannot get along. The primaries were an absolute mess. They were angry at each other. They were telling everyone why the other person was wrong. But they're all supposed to be working towards the same goal here.
Every party does that, right? You fight in a primary. But the Republicans just don't get along in January. They still hate each other then.
Right.
Let me ask you this, though, Keri Ingle. I think it's fair to say, I think if a person right now, the law is more pro-life than the people of Missouri are pro-life. Will this law be more pro-choice than the people of Missouri are pro-choice?
No, I mean, the ballot initiative basically mimics Roe, which polls in the 70s across the country along both sides of the party lines. Knocking out in eastern Jackson County in suburban purple areas, I get more Republicans on the door that say the Republicans of the state have gone too far. They are no longer the party of conservatism and freedom. They are the party of telling people what to do with their lives and their bodies.
And there's nothing pro-life about allowing a woman to hemorrhage in the parking lot because doctors are too afraid to treat her. There's nothing pro-life about allowing a 12-year-old to carry her uncle rapist's child to term. That's not pro-life.
Not arguing with that. Bill Hardwick, though, isn't the case you'll make is, well, yeah, maybe we need to adjust our current law. This law is too extreme.
That's right. I don't think it mimics Roe. I think Roe gives a framework for when states, and Planned Parenthood's case after that, when states can regulate abortion. But the question is now to states, and was then to some degree, when does a person have a right vested not to have their life taken, to be killed? And that's a question that we have to wrestle with as a state to figure out what the rules should be. We don't want situations like what you described happening. We want mothers to be protected, women to be protected, but we also want children, unborn children, to be protected. And that's what we're trying to figure out how to do. And I think that's at the discussion for our state to have. And I hope that we get it right, but I don't think that this initiative gets it right. I think it goes way too far with the pro-abortion direction.
All right, Keri Ingle, an interesting thing. You have heard your Republican colleagues from the U.S. senators, the Republican members of Congress, the Republican governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general, members of the legislature all say, the University of Missouri, we're going to get rid of these DEI policies. We're not doing this. I found it interesting this week. There's a big DEI conference that a department director not only was at, spoke at, was a leading member of the organization that put it together. Is it sure interesting to me that are they watching what these folks are doing? Is the bureaucracy just doing what they want to do?
Look, I think that all of this witch hunt around DEI mimics what we've seen before. I mean, it was CRT a couple years ago, right? It's whatever pseudo neo-Marxist scary witch that we're after this week. I frankly think it's sad that this is what Republicans are focused on, that they think that this is what people from all walks of life in the state of Missouri actually care about. I can tell you from knocking on doors, no one has brought up DEI. So you guys keep talking about this and we'll keep flipping districts.
Bill Hardwick, I mean, Republicans have talked about this up and down the ballot for a couple cycles, and they do win supermajorities in this state. So if I had to guess, who has a better feel for the people of this state, Mike Parson or Nicole Galloway? I think by a landslide, Mike Parson does. Now, the question I have here is, if your colleagues, all throughout uniformly said, we're not doing DEI, the universe not actually known as a conservative bastion, so we're not doing this. Then a department director just says, I'm going to do what I want. It's kind of an odd situation. Take the policy out of it, just total insubordination.
Yes, take the policy out of it. How do we have accountability for bureaucrats and members of the administrative state? The people in the state elected officials. They elected a governor, right, who they thought would best represent their values. That governor exercises executive authority over the bureaucracy. And if they can act independent, say we don't have to do what the legislature says, what the governor says, then maybe then who's controlling them? Who has accountability over them? The people certainly don't. The people exercise accountability over the bureaucracy, over their state government, through the people they elect, right? To the governor and the legislature.
Where does the buck stop? I mean, if Governor Crystal Quake comes out and says, this is our policy of the state, and a director just says, nah, I'm going to do what I want, where does the buck stop?
The buck stops at the governor. I absolutely think that Governor Parson, if he has a problem with the way his departments are being run, he should address it himself.
Doyle Justus, I tend to think DEI probably ain't real popular in Lincoln County.
No.
I doubt there's a guy swinging a hammer today in Troy that wants his tax dollars spent sending folks to DEI conferences.
I don't think so either.
And while people may say, who knows, I think you probably know, and we've actually took a very scientific poll, it's called an election, you probably know what folks in Lincoln County think.
Yes, that's correct.
So going forward, give me a prediction. What happens here? Is this just end of the term, let's sweep it under the rug, let Kehoe deal with it, and have him fire?
Well, one or the other, there's always a reckoning, right, between that tension. It has to be resolved some way. So I think what happens is that the governor says, hey, the people elected me to be in charge of the state, and I'm going to be in charge.
So what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a blatant disrespect to the governor, and I think that Governor Parson should probably handle the situation and not sweep it under the rug and let.
What happens?
I don't know what happens. I mean, like I said, I think the buck stops at the governor. So if he has a problem with how his departments are being run, he should handle it himself.
What happens?
I doubt anything happens.
I think you might be right. I think it might be one of those things where, hell with it. I mean, I think that's where my gut tells me. But let's talk about something that everybody else is talking about. The debate that happened with Trump and Harris. I didn't get a chance to see it myself. I've been really mourning every Cardinals loss very personally. But it seemed to me that the vice president had a good night.
She absolutely did. And it was a time for the people of America to get to know her on a more personal level, to hear about her policies, instead of the policies of grievance that we constantly hear from the other opponent.
What'd you say?
It reminded me why I supported Donald Trump in the first place in 2016. You've got on one side the Democrat candidate, the media, the establishment, all those folks all together, working together.
They were. That I think a fair person could say that Kamala Harris won that debate. But a fair person could say that she did have some help by moderators that were definitely for Kamala.
Sorry,
President Trump was
where was
debating.
the help? Was the help when they were turning his mics on every single time he went to interrupt? Was the help when he spoke more than she did, not just by minutes, but by like 10 times more than she got to speak?
She was thrilled with him speaking more.
I'm not certain how the moderators were in her favor.
I think a fair person could say she won that debate, and I'd have a hard time arguing. I also think it would be very hard for a fair person to say, I think those moderators, I can tell who they're voting for. I'd say I kind of think that's also fair.
I didn't detect any sarcasm there. Is that what David Muir said? He's like, hey, I was being sarcastic. And he's like, I don't detect sarcasm in your voice. So now the moderators are like telling him when he's joking and when he's serious. I
just think they did.
Look, are we seriously talking about the seriousness of a man who wants to be the leader of the free world, who's talking about people eating cats? Is that what we're talking about?
Well, you shouldn't eat cats. I mean, right? I mean, I think we can all agree on that.
Right. And at the end of the day, Scott, I don't think that really the debate last night is going to change the way people are going to vote. I think they've already made their mind up which way who they're going to support. And
how about Keri giving her cracking Asian jokes after our roast of John Patterson? That's kind of it. Seriously, though, with a minute left, who won the week?
Honestly, I think Kamala Harris and childless cat ladies across America, including America's princess, Taylor Swift.
But not the cat ladies that eat cats, just the cat ladies that raise cats, right? I'm just kidding. Who won the week?
Democrats in Missouri, democracy in Missouri, the voters of Missouri, the women of Missouri. We get to vote on an issue that is near and dear to our hearts. That is democracy at work, and I'm very, very excited for it.
My gut tells me you may get more than Democrats voting for Amendment 3. I think you may see some Republicans.
I think you're right.
Most normal people won't talk about abortion at the dinner table, but I think they may be joining you on the week.
so, Scott, you had a heck of a roast Monday night for John Patterson, and Troy Buchanan High School graduate Aaron Willard was recognized for his work with being chief of staff for Governor Parson. So I'm going to say Aaron Willard won.
No one more deserving. You should be very proud at Troy there. Served the governor extremely well the last 6 years. Bill, who won the week?
My daughter Holly recognized as a student leader in the 5th grade. She's going to surpass her dad. Already has in every way, I think.
Bill's so good at this. He always comes up with something really good. I'm going to say Carl Esslinger. She inherited a department that had serious issues. Come in, got to deal with her first real test early on. She's actually drilled up her sleeves and dug in. I think Carl Esslinger, by just putting her head down, running a good department, won the week. We hope you'll win the week next week by joining us here on This Week in Missouri Politics.
This Week in Missouri Politics is sponsored by the Missouri Automobile Dealers Association, Ameren, Spire, and the United Electric Cooperative.